Yo, what's up, everybody? It's Patriot, Patriot's Public Opinion, or Kill Billy, as I'm known in my rap music. But look, man, driving home from bouncing at the bar tonight, and just had a lot on my mind. Just want to have a conversation. Look, man, I'm truly worried about a lot of stuff going on in this country. And I think that, there's not enough people in this country that are taking these things serious. They're not seeing what's actually going on. Like, I think it's crazy that, this country, what we fought for and what this country represents is freedom to all men and women as equals, right? But that's not how things are being treated nowadays. And the crazy thing is, the right that everybody blames for everything, it's not us that's, treating people unequal and bad. Like, we are honest about our opinions, how we feel about certain things. But I don't see a whole lot of us that are sitting there saying, just because I disagree with this or the way that you want to live your life doesn't mean you shouldn't be able to live your life, right? The leftists, the ones that are supposedly trying to change this country for the better and represent the freedom and equality to do what you want, they're the ones that are persecuting the right side. And I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that'd be like, no, that's not true, man. We dealt with all these years of, slavery and social injustice and all this other stuff, man, and that was all pushed by the right. Well, throughout history, a lot of that stuff was actually pushed by Americans, by both the right and the left. It wasn't one side or the other. But the thing is, man, you have people talking about, rights for certain races, but, they believe that the white people should pay for what happened to, the slaves and all that stuff back in the day, that we should have to live that way now, and we should have to give up everything we have to them and all this and that. Well, that's not gonna happen, bro, because I can tell you right now, there are white people out there that don't like you and that probably would agree with slavery and that probably, have some pretty sick views, but I'm not one of those people. The white people I know are not those people. I can tell you that nobody in my family history or DNA has ever owned a slave, man. My people are Irish, dude, and if you know anything about, the Irish heritage, you know that the Irish themselves were slaves to the English. There's a lot of white cultures that were slaves, and you have people in this country from everywhere, dude. You can't put problems that happened, these generations ago, not even in the current generation we're living in, you can't put that on a particular group of people and their skin color. You're as bad doing that as the people who owned slaves and did all that shit to you guys back in the day, but you don't see it that way, right? It's not an equality plot, it's a revenge plot. It's not the same thing. You have the transgender movement right now, which is basically like, they want everyone to treat them equally and give them all the rights and stuff that they want, right? But as soon as somebody says, I disagree with that, then they want to push us and smear push their views onto us. They want to get it in the system and like public school and have it force fed to the kids and all this other kind of stuff, and God forbid you stand up against it, then you're just a homophobic or, transphobic or whatever else. That's not equality, bro. That's not, fighting for your rights and trying to make the world a better place. That's trying to demonize a group of people that you don't like because they don't agree with you, And a lot of people are talking about World War III and, another civil war in this country and all these kind of things. But, bro, here's the thing. Look, number one, that doesn't have to happen. You know, I think that we're definitely on the tripwire, but I don't think we're super close to any of those kind of explosions occurring right now. But one thing you got to understand, you know, and a lot of those views are coming from the left too, is a lot of that stuff's being caused by what you're doing because, you know, a lot of people on the Democratic side, and the leftist side, they don't want to reach agreements with people. They just want the other people to, you know, let them do what they want to do and shut the fuck up and just take it. And that's not, like I said, man, that's not equality. That's not agreement. That's not freedom. You know what I'm saying? And the funny part is you want all these things, but then, you know, you got people in your group that are talking about, well, we're not going to go fight if there's a draft, you know. Your people, most of the people in the group, they don't believe in violence. They don't want to use violence, even though a lot of them have adopted violent methods in their protests and their riots and stuff like that. The majority of the protests done by like BLM and the transgender movement and things like that, dude, they're not peaceful protests. You have a right in this country to protest, but peacefully. You assemble peacefully and protest peacefully. That's not what's been happening. There's violence and attacks being used on innocent people, you know? But the thing is, you have all these people that, you know, they want to push these views so hard, but they don't want to fight. Well, the people on the right, they're ready for a fight. They know what they believe in, and for them, you know, that belief is everything. To them, what this country stands for, their families, the people they love, their values, these are things they are going to fight for. So here's a question. If you're going to force feed these things or push it to the limit to where something, you know, does occur one day, what are you going to do when that fight comes? The right's ready to fight. You're not going to fight for your rights. The things that you're pushing so hard for and bitching and complaining about so tough. I mean, remember this, dude. You know, the forefathers that founded this country, you know, the people that fought the revolution to build this country, they were also leaving a corrupt society and government, right? And at the time of the revolution, they weren't seen as the heroes that we see them as now. You know, they were criminals. They were outlaws. You know, the English were viewed as the correct because they were the ones that were an actual formed government, and they were basically fighting a war against what was seen as a bunch of rebels. You know, in a lot of ways, if you compare it to things that are going on now, it'd almost be like the forefathers, you know, the Americans that fought to free this country would have almost been a form of terrorism. You know what I'm saying? But now, since we won that fight, we seceded and created our own nation and all this and that, our forefathers are heroes. You know, they became something incredibly positive in history. Well, that's where we're at now. A lot of people call this the right-wing criminals and outlaws and stuff like that, but, you know, we're fighting for our beliefs. We're ready to stand for what we believe is right, what we believe this country stands for. And the country that the left's trying to turn it into, that's not, you know, that's not what this country is, man. In a lot of ways, you're trying to turn it into a communist or a socialist state. And I love when I hear these young Gen X idiots talking about communism and talking about socialism and, you know, how great those things are. Well, obviously then you've never lived in a country where those things are realities, or you don't read, you know, enough history and educate yourself. Okay? In a communist nation, nobody can get ahead. You know, the people that are rich and elite are the people that work for the government. You know, everybody else is you only get what the government gives you, and it's not a choice or a decision. You don't have a right to speak or assemble or, think freely. People get beat up in the street, they get sent to prison, they get killed for that. Those things are not in existence. People die because health systems fail. People don't get the freedom to be what they want to be. They don't get the choice. People that don't want to be in the military still have to serve for the militaries and fight wars and die. You might have a dream of going to be, a doctor, but if your family, say for instance, runs dry cleaners, right? Then that's the business you're probably going to get pushed into, and they're going to keep you at that state. It's a terrible way of life, and no communist nation has ever completely succeeded with a happy population. Look at all the countries that are trying it now. The most successful one has probably been, or ones has probably been North Korea or China. China kills anybody that speaks out against them, so people are afraid. They don't want to talk against the government, even if they do believe that things are wrong or things should change, they're not going to say it because they don't want to die. In North Korea, it's the same thing. You can't even have access to the outside world as far as internet or news or anything like that. The government there, has created their own history, their own news about what's going on in the world, all this kind of stuff to brainwash their people and keep them functioning. I think it's really fucked up that, personally, the reason that I think Trump wasn't elected as president for a second term is because so many people didn't like his personality. They didn't like him as a human being. Well, I hate to tell you this, but that's not how you choose the leader of a country. His personality and the person that he is not any reason to vote for the kind of worm that we have in office now. Y'all really fucked this country doing that. Let personal feelings get in the way. You took out somebody who was truthfully fixing this country, and you put in a guy who in less than 4 years has put us in the worst state this country's probably ever been in. It's already said that Joe Biden will probably go down as the worst president in American history. And if you don't believe that Trump was really fixing things, the guy was bringing business back to the U.S. in a way that we hadn't seen, since like the auto manufacturers and all the industry and stuff like that started. He's bringing jobs here. He was trying to legitimately fix, certain things that had been messed up for years. Cities and neighborhoods that are fighting crime because there was no work. He was really fighting the drug epidemic hard. He was, he had the enemies of the country not only afraid to make a move against him and us, but they respected him. Vladimir Putin's respect towards Trump was not, it wasn't for show, man. The guy literally respected Trump. He sees Trump as a lion, the same as him. Kim Jong-un was scared shitless of Trump because he knew the threats Trump made against North Korea were real, that Trump would do that. Iran wasn't getting ballsy like they are, and China was actually backing down. Oops, sorry, it breaks, my phone fell. China was backing down, after the trade embargoes and all that kind of stuff got put in place. They were starting to come around to making deals with us and wanting to know how to work with Trump again because we were hurting their money. And at the same time, our resources in our country was getting better. Economically, spiritually, we started to see things in this country we hadn't seen in 20, 30 years. Now, we have a guy who just completely pissed all of that away. The guy can't even stop blaming Trump for the mistakes he's making. Dude, you've been president for damn near 4 years. And you're still sitting here every time you make a mistake and you're blaming it on Trump, dude. That's an unfit leader. You know? You have to understand that we're in a bad way, in a bad situation right now. You know? And we can only live this way for a certain amount of time before something happens. You know? There's already starting to be crisis here. There's already starting to be a lot of different things that are not looking all that good. And, you know, that's why people are so worried about a conflict of one of these sorts happening. So, I also don't believe that you guys realize, you know, how serious it would get if one of these conflicts occurred. Like, what's going to happen? Like, dude, first off, all these people that are like, I won't be drafted to the military, I won't serve, you're gonna serve, okay? They're not gonna like sit there and let you just get away. You're gonna be a deserter or a felon, or, you know, you're gonna get put in the military, decide to throw down your weapon, not do your job, and more than likely probably get killed if we're in a major conflict. If something like the Civil War happens, look at the after effects and the things that would happen. Like, think about that. You're going to have leadership divided, right? States will be divided just like they were in the Civil War, but we're not going to be fighting on a battlefield with, you know, muskets and swords and cannons, dude. We have access to nuclear arsenals now. What do you do when, you know, your politicians divide and the access to some of the most dangerous weapons in the world are in the hands of different people? When military bases that are spread through the country are all of a sudden broke up between different sides, okay? I mean, for one thing, here's a really good idea of what I'm talking about. The way that Texas was added into the United States, Texas was left with an option to not be a permanent state. You know, they have a right to secede from the nation. Some of the largest military installations in this country, some of the biggest units and, you know, weapons are in Texas. So say we were to get into a civil war, and Texas is like, fuck that, we're not riding with either side, we're seceding from the nation, we're taking our freedom back, and all of a sudden Texas becomes its own country, right? But all that stuff that's within its borders belong to it. It becomes part of that country. So all of a sudden we don't have access to those weapons, those bases, those facilities anymore. And Texas is a very wealthy, successful country in the military arms industry, the flight industry, the technical industry. They can do a lot of things on their own, and pulling away from us is really going to hurt. You know, it's going to hurt the rest of the country. You know, you're going to have families completely divided and obliterating each other again like they did back in the Civil War. And then you're going to have long-lasting effects left over from everything if the country doesn't destroy itself. One thing is we've managed to remain a superpower for all these years and generations. That's going to be gone if we turn on and fight each other, because the country's going to get split, dude. And even afterwards, if it all became one country again, the damage that we're going to have done to ourselves is going to be so immense that, you know, we'll probably become a second or third world nation. You know? It's not going to be as easy to rebuild as it was the first time, because they were simpler times. It's like I've said before in videos, dude, I don't disagree with anybody's reality or they want to live their life. You know, you have the freedom in this country to be who you want to be. But if you're going to demand certain freedoms, you have to be ready to do what's necessary to protect those freedoms. And this new generation also needs to learn to educate themselves on the choices that they're making and the people they're putting in power. Don't do it on revenge plots and vendettas, because that's how we get put in the situation we're in now. It's not even really about the government or the people running us. It's about the people itself. The people are divided. It has to stop, man. It has to be fixed, you know? I love my country. I love my people. You know, I've served already because I wanted to protect everything here because I value it. I don't want to see it get destroyed. I don't want to see these things happen. And you're sitting here talking about, you know, you won't pick this side or that side. Well, when a situation like that happens, you don't exactly have a choice. So if we don't want it to get to that point, if we're trying to avoid all these things I'm talking about, let's as a people start using our brains. Let's come together and start figuring out how to nurse our nation back to health. I mean, in all reality, it's a really simple answer. It's just an answer nobody wants to agree on, and nobody wants to actually do the work to commit to. That's all.